Lorena de crítica concreta.
Yeah, I think that's it.
My name is Marcela Lopéz. I'm urban geographer, but I'm trained as an engineer, and I'm teaching at the Technical University in Berlin. And the idea is to bring technical sciences into more political issues. So now what we are going to discuss is the topic of waste. That we as a household as we are now, how we are a big producer of waste and what we do with this is a very important question. So I want to ask you, why do you recycle? Who can give me? I mean, we are coming from different countries, we have different habits of relation to waste. So what are the main interests behind recycling? Why do we recycle?
Sustainability.
Sustainability.
To stop going to landfills, irregular landfills.
So to store waste to go to landfills. Okay. The stock. Okay. Sustainability, reducing waste in landfills. What else? Why do we recycle?
To reuse.
To reuse something that still has some value. Yeah. Okay. So it's no waste. You can give a prolong the function of this object. Yes.
Where I'm from, it's a cultural norm, so you're kind of shamed if you're not.
It's a cultural norm.
Yeah.
From whom? Who gives this cultural norm?
Canada, or West Coast Canada, Vancouver, not all of them.
Vancouver.
Oh, who gives it? Oh,
Who gives it? Okay, the state. Tell me the state. Tell me, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's pushed more by environmental groups.
Policy. Wait. Policy.
It's policy, no?
Okay.
It's not-
Policy. Who gives this policy? Is it coming from the sky and the policy?
In my city, it's pushed more by the environmental groups.
Environmental groups play an important role.
but that's just my very small university model, I guess.
Okay. So policy. Who said policy? So from where is coming this policy? From?
Oh, no, I'm just, I thought it was policy in Canada.
Okay.
It usually is policy in some countries, but very few.
Okay, so policy. What else? What can be the reasons behind recycling? Why are we recycling here in the house?
Sam?
Global warming.
Global warming, so some environmental concerns behind it. Okay. What else? What are the reasons behind recycling? Look, it's very diverse. We recycle because of different reasons. What else?
Money.
Money. Okay. Tell me more about this. This sounds very interesting.
In Germany, we have a system with collecting bottles, so plastic bottles. If you recycle them, you get money back. So you
get rewarded if you get
10 cents per
Okay.
bottle.
Okay. So at the end you get some economical value when you return the plastic bottle. So this is a typical container in Germany. I'm just bringing some examples where I'm living from Berlin. So you have these yellow containers when you place this, let's say, plastic. What happened with the plastic when you put it here? What happened afterwards?
Landfills.
Landfills.
Ship it to other countries.
You ship it out where?
Turtles.
What?
No, we don't ship it to turtles.
Turtles, dancing turtles. Okay,
Yeah.
how?
We did my backyard.
Okay, I like the idea of we turn it into, we ship it somewhere else. How? Tell me a bit more about this.
I think it was Canada, France, the US, Britain. I think for the last 10 years, we've been shipping our garbage, which was labeled as sorted and recycled to.
So this is interesting to know where it's hidden
Yeah,
behind.
just recently.
Exactly. So it's very interesting to know where it's hidden behind recycling. I mean, we think that we are throwing something like plastic in a container, and this is the end. Somebody is gonna take care of this, but we don't know what is behind it, where this is gonna end up, and why we don't know it. This is a very interesting question. Who is keeping all these stories behind the container that we don't know it, and nobody's interested to know that we ask questions. What is behind the container? What is happening with the waste? So, why are we recycling? There are very important moral aspects behind it. It gives a moral dimension. We feel good, right? When we separate goods, even we don't know where this is gonna end up, we feel good. So morally and ethically, it's perfect. We feel extremely good. We are doing something good for environment, yeah? So it needs a moral dimension. And the household is a very important unit that helps the recycling industry moving. If we don't separate, the recycling industry is not economical. Okay, so we need some moral aspects. That's why we are pressed or obliged or feel good recycling. Yeah. As we said, recycling is good for the environment. There is not any doubt. I mean, all companies tell us, come bring your packages, bring your plastic bottles. This is going to help the environment. Yeah. And as I said, the recycling industry depends on us. On us in every single house recycling every single item. If we don't separate, the recycling business does not work. Otherwise, they have to employ a huge amount of people separating things, and it is not worth it. So this recycling business is highly dependent on us recycling at home in the source. But it's very interesting because now recycling became a big issue. We feel that we are recycling. But you find, if you look historically, recycling is a very old habit. It's not something that's new. But the reasons behind recycling were completely different. So for instance, I take the sample of the city of Munich at the beginning of the 19th. Why people were recycling, but the reasons were completely different. It was a beginning of the First World War, the Second World War, so there was scarcity. There was not this excessive consumption that we have nowadays. The other reason is that people were more attached to the labor of things. For instance, if your mother gives you a jacket and she made it, you don't throw it so easy because you know the labor behind it. And so there were different forms of attachment to the objects. And nowadays, people were recycling also because there was a culture of reusing, of extending the life of things. And now we are recycling because we care about the environment. Because we are always putting the environment as a central point and putting the environment in a source of crisis. We are contaminated, our resources are limited. And these are very important narratives and discourses that move us to recycle. Yeah? But are we really recycling? I mean, we have seen in the last couple of months, years, the problem of waste. We have seen thousands of waste moving around in all these oceans and sea, and we have seen this couple of pictures. So you are wondering, are we really recycling? What happened with the plastic that we throw in the yellow container that I put it at the beginning? Where this plastic is ending up? So if we look at globally, what happened with the waste, this is quite interesting. Just 12% is incinerated, so it's burned. The problem with incineration is being brought as a solution, but to make an incineration plant to work, you need to bring constantly rubbish. So it's not tackling the problem of waste. You need constantly waste to make the machines working. So at the end, is it really solving the problem? Just 9% is being recycled. So what's happening with all our habits of recycling at home? Where are the recycling objects or things and ending up? Landfills and environment. So 79% is ending up somewhere else. So at the end, the recycling process is not working how it is expecting. So what is happening? Where is all the things we are recycling, where are they ending up?
Ocean.
One part of the ocean, but it's something very interesting. They are shipping plastic somewhere else, as somebody mentioned here. There are 4 countries that are the main exporters of plastic in the world. First one is USA, then Japan, then Germany, and then UK. The problem, why you think they are exporting waste? What's the problem? Why Germany cannot handle waste in their own country, or the US, or
They don't have the facilities to do proper recycling, and China has very cheap labor, so they can handle the weight. But like China is saying, no, we're just going to handle our own waste, and they're shipping back all of the waste to the origin of the country.
Exactly. So they found as a destination Southeast Asia. Because labor is cheaper, because lives are more disposable there. Regulations in Europe and US are becoming more complicated, so it's very difficult to find landfills. There are more strong environmental regulations. So to place a landfill is very complicated. Nobody wants to live next to a landfill, so there is always opposition. And then waste is always sent where the environmental rules are weaker. Yeah. So in this case, but it's very interesting. Is like China since 1998 was the main importer of waste in the world, and they realized that the main reason to import waste is because they wanted to insert the waste in the economy. Again, to bring waste, plastic, and turn it into another product. But they realized that the importing plastic, for instance, it was the bad plastic. You cannot do anything with it. So the best plastic was here, and the bad one was shipped to China. So China banned plastic since January 2018. So there was another country now that became the biggest destination of plastic. Do you know?
Philippines.
Which one?
Philippines.
Philippines? No.
Malaysia is also
Malaysia.
one of the biggest, but they're also saying no to
Malaysia, then after China banned the import of plastic, Malaysia became the main country importing plastic. But then, since this year, it was banned. So now, all countries are desperately looking what is the ultimate sink of plastic. So who is, or which country is able to receive this amount of plastic? Yeah.
China is also shipping their waste to my country now.
Who?
In Gambia, China.
China.
They're
So imagine,
shipping
so
their
there is
waste.
another way, exactly. Yeah. So why waste is traveling? This is very interesting. Why we are not keeping waste in one place? Why waste is traveling? The waste that is being produced in the households is constantly being wasted and or traveling somewhere else. This is what is very interesting to question the reasons or what is behind recycling. Recommended. There's a movie called Traveling Plastic China. So you will find out your plastic bottles and all plastic you have used here in Europe, you will end up in China. And so you can dig very deeply what is being behind the everyday life for living with plastic in China. So how rural communities turn out in the biggest recycling compound in the world. But as I mentioned, since 2018, this is banned. But anyway, plastic stays there. And as we know, plastic doesn't disappear so fast. They can stay forever. Another object that is being very interesting, e-waste. There is big containers when you say electronics drop off. What happens with the e-waste? When your telephone doesn't work out, what do you do with it?
We sell it to a store.
To a store. And the store, what does the store do with it?
Well, they repair it and sell it cheaper to other people.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in Spain, in the industry, that buy all over Europe and they just refurbish it and sell it in Africa, in Morocco. I know a lot of people.
So many of the old computers or electronic waste, what is here core waste, ends up somewhere else. So it can be in Morocco, or now the ultimate place for e-waste is Accra, in Ghana.
They sell data, don't they? And they collect data out of used computers and they sell it.
This is very interesting because it was a big scandal because, for instance, US electronic waste or European e-waste ends up in Accra. So in 2000, the problem of electronic waste didn't exist. Accra didn't have this problem of receiving e-waste. But now there are huge landfills filled with e-waste. So it's a problem of the last 20 years. Before it didn't exist. So it's a contemporary problem. The most interesting thing is a big argument. I mean, there was a big debate. Why Europe and America are sending e-waste? Why they're sending e-waste? And it was very interesting. They said, no, it's not waste. It's a donation. We are from exporting e-waste for disposal. We're exporting e-waste for recycling, so people can still use our computers. They can extend the life. But if you look in reality, they are totally useless. You cannot use it. But it's very interesting through these courses you move waste. It's not waste for disposal, it's waste for recycling. These are donations. So this is how shifts in this course make the movement of waste much easier. Yeah. So at the end we have this kind of landscapes. And it's also very interesting when you look at waste, this waste ends up, but for building electronic appliances, you need lots of materials and minerals. So for instance, rechargeable batteries are hard line of silver, copper, lithium. Lithium, where's the biggest lithium reserves in the world? In Chile, Bolivia, and China. Yeah? Silicon and cobalt. Cobalt is here you can find a mine of cobalt from Congo. And we know what's happening in Congo. I mean, there's a big civil war that is fueled by the mining industry of cobalt. That is, cobalt is one of the main resources for batteries for our phones and for so many things. So it's not just the waste, we are displacing waste something, but we are changing landscapes somewhere else to build our products. So it's very interesting that we jump a bit from the scale of the households to see how our consumption patterns in households are changing landscapes somewhere else. Yeah? So Congo, Europe, Ghana. Have you seen this recently? Okay. It became quite popular in the last couple of months everywhere, at least in the city where I'm living, in Berlin. Now there are 5 companies. 5 companies that put around the city 1,000 rollers, electronic, I don't know, roller. And it's being sold as a sustainable transportation system, which was interesting, is creating lots of controversy. One of the main reasons is because they're placed everywhere. So what is being good for tourists and is used as a sustainable transportation, for us who live in Berlin, this is waste. They are everywhere. And what is very interesting is also they rely on batteries and it's sold as a sustainable transportation. And what is not the story hidden behind this is the rechargeable batteries. Where are the lithium coming from? So this is really sustainable. We have to unpack all these discourses and all these ways of marketing these kind of tools. Something that has not been discussed much. What happens when this gets broken? Who is going to repair it? Nobody knows it. Is it going to be a new source of waste in cities? And I will bring you a very interesting example afterwards. In the last 2-3 years, Berlin became an area or a city when it became a big competition of sharing bikes. So you can imagine there are sharing bikes everywhere from different kinds of companies. There's a brand called Obe Bike that got broken in 2018. And they have 30,000 bikes abandoned in whole Europe. And what is very interesting is idea from Singapore. Bikes were built in China, sent to Germany by a UK firm, and marketed as a future transportation. But now they are spread all over Europe and nobody knows what's going to happen with it. Because responsibility is in Singapore and the state doesn't have any mechanism or any policy to control it. So at the end are going to be all these kind of sustainable transportation systems, future ways. What are going to do when they become obsolete, when they become broken, when the companies cannot work anymore? So what's going to happen with what will be the future of these types of transportation systems? And also something that I find very paradoxical is the moral aspects of recycling clothes. It's very interesting how this is a container in H&M, and then they say, recycle here, get 20% off, and then it's less. So at the end it's like, come help us bring your textiles and we give you 20% more so you can consume more. So at the end they are not tackling the problem of consumption of clothes, they are just encouraging you to consume more clothes, give them the clothes, and they can still make profit of the clothes. You want to say something?
Yeah, you need to get off your closet and arrange your closet because you need more space for the new one.
Exactly.
If you keep them, you will feel like you're eaten too much. So you need to puke all your one-use clothes away, and then you can eat again junk food or junk clothes, basically.
But what is very interesting is still they are using and deploying the discourses on environment. Like, let's close the loop. Which loop? I mean, is it really closing the loop, or who is really winning from recycling clothes? So here environmental issues play a very important role, and also the ethical issues. People feel good bringing the clothes back, so you can consume more. So it's a way of come, feel ethically good, and at the end we reward you by this 20% off, buy more. So in all this recycle industry, I mean, this is a very big business. Some people are getting lots of money for it, and it's very interesting to us who really benefits from recycling. Who really benefits from recycling? As we say, we are recycling, but at the end, we are really having a big crisis of recycling. What is happening with all the things we are collecting ending up in somewhere else, and why we don't know it? And why are we still doing this? And why we are not questioning the recycling methods used in our cities? So at the end, important question to ask is who really benefits from moving waste?
The company.
Many people. Many people. Okay, thank you.